Whitney Houston and the trap of being special. Whitney Houston's story is not just about fame, family, addiction, or even Hollywood. It is about what happens when a simple love gets seized by a larger hunger. A child says, "I love to sing," and the world hears, "Here is something we can build around." That is the shift. That is the fracture. That is where the trouble begins. Because loving to sing is one thing, wanting to be a professional singer is another. Those are not the same sentence. One comes from joy, the other comes from a structure. One says, "This moves through me naturally." The other says, "This must go somewhere." And that hunger to make it go somewhere is usually already there before the child can name it. It lives in the parents, it lives in the family, it lives in the culture. It lives in the dream of escape. It lives in class aspiration. It lives in the need to prove. It lives in the fantasy that this gift will carry everybody somewhere better. So when Whitney says she knew she wanted to be a professional singer, the deeper question is not whether she meant it. The deeper question is, who taught her that loving a thing was not enough? Who taught her that the gift had to become a career? Who taught her that the voice had to become a vehicle? Who taught her that singing was not complete in itself, but had to be turned into destiny? That is the universal pattern. A child starts with something alive, immediate, uncalculated. Then the adults arrive with interpretation. They call it a gift. They call it special. They call it purpose. They call it God's hand. They call it legacy. They call it opportunity. And the moment they call it that, the innocence around it begins to narrow. Because now the thing is no longer free. Now it carries meaning. Now it carries projection. Now it carries instruction. Now it carries the family's unfinished business. Whitney's mother may very well have believed she was protecting her, and in one sense she was. She had seen the industry. She knew it was hard. She knew fad did not last. She knew image could swallow substance. She knew talent could be wasted. So she drilled her. She trained her. She made her repeat things over and over until they were right. She sent her away to be polished. She tried to make her sophisticated, safe, untouchable. All of that can be understood as love trying to outsmart danger. But love mixed with fear becomes management. And management, even with good intentions, starts to communicate something very dangerous. It says, what is natural in you is not enough by itself. It says, you must be shaped. It says, you must be prepared. It says, you must be refined. It says, you must become legible to the world that will reward you. And the child learns to cooperate. The child learns to obey. The child learns to perform seriousness. The child learns that if this gift is real, it must justify itself. That is where the burden enters. The song is no longer just a song. It is now a staircase, a ladder, a passport, a meal ticket, a rescue mission, a family system. Whitney becomes the place where too many hopes converge. Her mother's disappointment, her father's ambition, her family's upward mobility, the church's moral frame, the industry's appetite, the culture's contradictory demands. Black enough, but not too black. Polished enough, but not too polished. Innocent enough, but still sensual. Spiritual enough, but still commercial. Universal enough, but still authentic. This is what the documentary names so well with that phrase, double consciousness. Whitney was not simply becoming a star.
She was being trained to move between incompatible worlds. And when a person is taught to survive by splitting, the split does not disappear just because the strategy works. It deepens. That is why the most important divide in the story is not really black and white. It is not church and pop. It is not Newark and Hollywood. It is Nippy and Whitney Houston. Nippy is the simple one, the one who loved to sing, the one who slept on the couch, the one who was rough and tough, the one who laughed, the one who could be fluid, the one who did not need to be a concept. Whitney Houston is the one the machine could use. The image, the princess, the crossover miracle, the voice of America, the bodyguard, the banner, the bullet train. And once the machine locks onto that version, the simple self starts losing square footage.
The more successful the constructed self becomes, the less room there is for the ordinary human being who first carried it. That is not just a celebrity problem. That is the modern condition. A person starts out loving something, then comes identity, then branding, then expectations, then monetization, then maintenance, then performance of the performance. And one day the person wakes up in a life built around what they once loved and cannot find the self who loved it. That is why Robin matters so much in this story. Robin is not just a side character. Robin is a threat to the whole apparatus. Why? Because Robin represents a place where Whitney did not have to be Whitney Houston. Robin represented safety, a zone outside the money logic, outside the family payroll, outside the father's empire, outside the church performance, outside the heterosexual fairy tale, outside the public image campaign. Robin represented the possibility that the mask could come off. And systems built on image cannot tolerate the person who knows where the zipper is. That is why Robin had to be turned into the problem. That is what systems do. Anything that interrupts the story gets recast as evil, dangerous, wicked, opportunistic, disruptive. Not because it is, but because it reveals another standard. Robin did not serve more. Robin did not serve next. Robin did not serve expansion. Robin served refuge. And refuge is a threat to a machine that only knows continuation. That machine is one of the documentary's clearest revelations. It does not really care about the person. It cares about the flow. Keep it moving. Keep it generating. Keep it touring. Keep it selling. Keep the image intact. Keep the houses. Keep the payrolls. Keep the access. Keep the illusion alive. So when Whitney begins collapsing, the system cannot read collapse as a cry for truth. It reads collapse as an interruption in production. Even rehab becomes subordinate to the machine. If the money dries up, healing stops. If the tour must continue, the body goes. If the voice is damaged, the legend must still report for duty. This is the part people call tragic, but it is actually mechanical. A structure built on extraction will keep extracting. It does not suddenly grow a conscience because the source is thinning out. And then there is the abuse. The sexual abuse does not explain everything, but it changes the emotional grammar of the whole story. Because now secrecy is not theoretical. Now betrayal is inside the home. Now silence is survival. Now even the mother cannot be told, because telling the mother feels more dangerous than carrying the burden alone. That is enormous. It means the child learned early that pain could not safely travel toward the very place that was supposed to protect it. So of course the dreams come. The swaying bridge, the storm, the giant, the running, the exhaustion. Those are not random images. That is the nervous system preaching in symbols. A life built around escape still feels like escape on the inside. No matter how beautiful the house gets, no matter how loud the applause becomes, no matter how iconic the anthem is, no matter how many #1 records line the walls, the inner weather does not care about trophies. And this is where the line about perfect obedience becomes so sharp. Whitney's life carries the ache of someone silently asking, "All my obedience led me here. What was it for? I went to church. I sang the songs. I listened to my mother. I took the training. I followed the script. I honored the gift. I became what everyone said I was supposed to become. And now I am standing in the palace, smoking, drinking, swallowed by space, with nowhere inside myself that feels like home." That is the devastating thing about obedience when it is tied to fulfillment. It can deliver the result and still fail the heart. It can take a person exactly where they were told to go and still leave them asking why they feel abandoned there. And then people reach for the familiar religious language. The devil is trying to get you. He wants your soul. But that language can hide as much as it reveals. Because once evil is cast as something purely outside, the machinery inside gets a free pass. The family system gets a free pass. The image machine gets a free pass. The hunger gets a free pass. The false self gets a free pass. The thing chasing Whitney was not just some external devil. It was the accumulated pressure of unresolved contradiction.
Be holy, be sexy, be crossover, be black, be universal, be a wife, be a mother, be a dream, be the breadwinner, be the miracle, be the one everybody survives through. No human being can carry that amount of symbolic demand without fragmentation, and that fragmentation becomes the atmosphere of the whole second half of the story. Bobby does not interrupt the pattern, he repeats it. He looks like rebellion against refinement, but he is really another form of instability attaching itself to instability. He is the return of what was excluded, the hood, the unrefined, the dangerous boy the mother tried to train her away from. So the marriage becomes both a protest and a repetition. She tries to make a home out of the very energies she was warned against, but she is also trying to heal something much older, trying to build the family she did not get, trying to undo the divorce, trying to prove she will not become her mother, trying to finally make the dream work. But if the original wound is still active, the new stage just receives the old script. And in the end, that is the larger warning in Whitney Houston's story. Not that fame is dangerous, not that Hollywood is evil, not that family is complicated. All of that is true, but it is not the deepest thing. The deepest thing is this. When a child's simple love gets captured by the hunger of the world, the child may spend an entire lifetime trying to get back to the place where the love was still free. That is what home means in this story. Not a mansion, not marriage, not stardom, not applause, not even church in its outer form. Home is the inner place where the gift had not yet been turned into an assignment, where the voice had not yet become a product, where obedience had not yet been made into a transaction, where being special had not yet become a trap. And that is why Whitney Houston still feels universal. Because the scale is extreme, but the structure is ordinary. People live this everywhere. The gifted child, the favored one, the beautiful one, the smart one, the chosen one, the one everyone pins a future on. At first it looks like privilege, later it feels like pressure, then it becomes identity, then prison. And if no one protects the simple self underneath it all, the whole life can become a glittering monument to someone the world admired, but the person inside could no longer locate. Whitney Houston's story is not finally about self-destruction. It is about what happens when the world keeps rewarding the mask and has no idea what it is costing the face beneath it. And maybe that is the most haunting thing of all. Not that she was special, but that being told she was special may have been one of the first ways the cage was built.